The succession battle has begun over at Fox News, that is. It's taken place in Reno, Nevada. They started today in court. We're going to talk all about the company, its challenges, and its sort of personal mess that it's in. I mean, this is like family suing family. Pretty crazy, wild stuff. We're going to talk about this Trump poll. Oh my goodness. Well, it's actually a New York Times poll. New York Times Siena poll. And oh, wow. I mean, this is really and truly very, very good news for Donald Trump, which is perhaps why you're not really seeing it anywhere. I mean, you can barely even find it on the New York Times website itself, and this is their poll. Meanwhile, mega pop star Janet Jackson is in all kinds of trouble with legacy media right now because, well, she kind of stepped in something that apparently she shouldn't have stepped in. She dared to question the authenticity of Kamala Harris. Wow, great to have you all here, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we begin today on Fox News. Fox News really kind of imploding here, and it's kind of their own doing. The Murdoch family, you see, is in court in Reno, Nevada, because they're facing off here in this battle for control. Who's going to actually run the company when Rupert Murdoch himself, 93 years old, but, you know, he's still getting married, so he sees a future that maybe some don't. 93 years old, when he goes, who's going to take over the company? Would it be Lachlan Murdoch, or would it be the three other siblings? So you see, there's a lot of powers that be that would like to take over. When you look at this, here the media is picking up on the story. It's the family drama that's playing out in court, and it really could decide the future of Fox News. Now, I know a lot of you have already ditched Fox News. I know a lot of you have pulled the cord, and you're like, you know what? Network TV is not for me. Cable is not for me. And you're over here, and you're watching us streaming, and I thank you for that because I'm live right now. This is a live stream, so careful what you say. And I think that this is most definitely the future. We'll talk about that a little bit because it matters for this stock price, which has gone literally nowhere in the last 4 years or so. But this is all over the media now. Murdoch family drama playing out in real time here as the 93-year-old wants his eldest son, Lachlan, to run his empire after he dies. But you see, he's got a few kids hanging around. So he's saying he keeps getting married, you keep having kids. I mean, these guys have to be just having a big sigh of relief that the latest and greatest lady of choice is just like some 2 decades younger. Actually, she's like 67, so she's quite a bit younger. I mean, but you know, she's not having kids, so they don't have to worry about that. But anyway, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Only 4 of them actually have voting rights, though. And what's at issue is that apparently back in 1999, Rupert Murdoch decided his legacy was super important. He wanted to help 4 of his 6 children have something really to, you know, he wanted to give them something. He wanted them to be part of his legacy. So he gave them voting rights in shares of Fox and News Corp. Well, now he doesn't really want them to have those rights anymore. They've gotten really liberal. You know, the kids, right? The kids. You build all this up, and then they just want to squander it. So he's looking over at Lachlan, who you see there, 53-year-old Lachlan Murdoch, and he's like, you know what? I think he can do it. I think he can do it better than James, who's 51, or Elizabeth, who's 56, or Prudence. That was the daughter from his very first marriage. Then he had the other 3 from the second marriage, and then another 2 from the third marriage. It keeps going, and then there was the 4th marriage to Jerry Hall, and then there was nearly a 5th marriage, which did eventually become a 5th marriage because he was really serious with someone, and then he wound up marrying this woman who's like the ex-wife of a Russian billionaire. Anyway, we'll leave that aside. You know what? You do you, we do me. We're all fine, right? We're all fine. We don't judge, shall we say, except when it comes to the future of the media company itself, when it comes to the future of the company's stock price. Now, again, I'm looking at this thing, and it traded up today, up about 2.25%. I'm looking at Fox Corp shares A shares. So this would be what the family sort of mainly holds. You can also take a look at Fox, which has the B shares trading as well. But let's go back to A for a moment, or B. I mean, it doesn't matter. This is a stock that's gone nowhere in years. All right, so that's like dead money, which is never good, right? You don't ever want to invest in something, say in 2021, only to have it be worth less than it was in 2021. And that's exactly what I'm looking at here on this chart, a chart actually by the Wall Street Journal. So owned by him, owned by Fox and News Corp, of course. So anyway, this is a big deal. They've got this battle that's brewing over this irrevocable trust. So these are big money family issues, right? They have a trust set up, and for the kids, they're supposed to have these voting rights. But what do you do when you only got one that's a conservative, and you think the answer for the business is to stay conservative, and the other three say, no, we want to go more liberal? I mean, I know you all are like, but wait a second, didn't they go liberal? To which I would say, yeah, I kind of think they did. I think that was definitely at play. But it may not have just been as simple as going liberal. Think about it this way. Fox wants to succeed as an entity, right? It's a business. It has to succeed as an entity. It also wants a certain amount of power. And typically, it's been able to wield all kinds of power within the GOP. Rupert was effectively the kingmaker. Right? If you wanted to win the presidency, you were going to have to kiss up to him. Well, along came a guy who didn't actually play by the rules in the same way, and actually won anyway, and won the nomination again anyway. And Fox, actually, perhaps as a result of trying to become more anti-Trump. They wanted to hedge their bets. They'd love to have seen like maybe DeSantis or Nikki Haley or anybody besides Trump in there as the Republican nominee. And in doing so, they alienated a lot of their audience to the point where there was this funny moment when Bret Baier, one of their main anchors back in June of 2023, was talking to Donald Trump about, hey, you don't really appeal to everyone. And, well, he got an earful right to his face.
That you believe that they're political witch hunts.
Of course.
But what do you say to the voter who really liked many of your policies?
They still do.
But they can't handle the scandals or the controversies or the name-calling or the vitriol. What do you say to that voter who's worried that all leads to a general election loss?
So based on the polls, I'm leading Biden by a lot. Based on the polls, I'm leading all of the Republicans by a lot, by 40 points. And more. Right now, I have the best polls I've ever had. People see this stuff for what it is. It's a political witch hunt. It's a continuation.
More independent voters watch Fox News than any other TV source.
A lot less than used to watch it.
They do watch. Those voters usually make up all the difference in the election.
Okay. So he's like, yeah, no. I don't know what you're looking at, Brett, but a lot less sort of middle-of-the-road voters are watching you. That was kind of a hit on their ratings overall at the time. I believe Tucker had recently left, and they were taking a bit of a hit in the ratings. Look, this company has a lot of problems, a lot of structural problems that aren't, frankly, not to pick on them, right? It's not like it's unique to Fox. Disney's dealing with the same thing. All of the networks are dealing with the same thing because we're right over here, right? Like this is where the party is. And so if everything is changing so fast, and if content creators have a way to go direct to you, the viewer, then guess what? No one needs the networks anymore. It's a totally fractionalized media universe and content creation universe. And I find it exciting. I mean, obviously, as a content creator, right? I don't have to go and work for a network. I don't have to go to a Fox News. I don't have to go to a CNN. I didn't ever work for CNN, but CNBC or, any of these other big entities. I'm able to do this direct with you. And so that's one of the challenges, we can discuss it some more, that Fox News is facing. That's just the reality of the landscape. It's the reality of the business right now. So, would I invest in Fox? No. Would I invest in any network? Not to pick on them, right, exclusively, in fairness, and I have a lot of insight into them, having worked there, which I can share with you, but I think that the whole kit and caboodle is basically ruined. There is no opportunity in network space anymore. And we've proved that. Heck, I often of course, I was at Fox Business, which was like the redheaded stepchild compared to Fox News, but I'm telling you, I'm getting more viewers over here. You're tuning into these live shows. I think we had more than Kamala Harris the other night, right? She got like 300,000 live on YouTube. We've been able to do that. So in other words, you're finding content, you're seeking out. The power has been put into the hand of the consumer. You don't need the big networks anymore. It doesn't change the fact that when you get back to the situation there within the family, well, Rupert is kind of nervous about 3 of his 4 children. And he thinks that they don't have the business sensibility or the sort of conservative acumen, if you would, to be able to take this company forward. They would argue that they need to do something different. Well, I'll tell you this. You know what? They need to do something different, but I don't think it has anything to do with politics. I think it has everything to do with actually really doing something different. In other words, reinventing, rethinking the business. And I'm not talking MySpace. Yeah, Fox actually bought MySpace. Do you remember MySpace? If you're older, you might. For the kids, not so much. But that was Facebook before there was Facebook. And Fox bought it, and maybe, you could argue the instincts were there. They just didn't have the right business, shall we say. So, they've got to adapt, but it's hard to adapt when you've got a cash cow that's actually still printing money. In fairness, you know what? The company makes a lot of money, and it will continue to do so until its business goes full on bye-bye. And it could happen. I want to share with you Donald Trump just the other day on Fox and Friends, kind of dissing a couple of the anchors as being sort of maybe more of the James rather than the Lachlan camp. Here he is on Fox and Friends.
Mr. President, I know when we started the interview, you said that you felt that you won the debate last night, your best ever. I think before the debate happened last night, the Kamala Harris people said that they would actually like to do another debate in October. And I know that last night Fox News sent letters to your campaign and her campaign offering 3 dates of debates moderated by Martha and Brett. One is October 9th in Arizona.
Well, I wouldn't want to have Martha and Brett. I'd love to have somebody else other than Martha and Brett. I'd love to have, frankly, Sean or Jesse or Laura. Somebody else. Let's give other people a shot. But I didn't think Martha and Brett were.
Ooh, okay. It's always tough when you're on a network's air and you start dissing the talent of that network, and the other talent's like, whoa, 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 and the producers are like, whoa, whoa, what is he doing? What is he doing? He's dissing us on our own air. So again, I go back to the power play issue that's going on here. In other words, you've got Donald Trump, who's figured out pretty well that he can go direct to the people. So he doesn't actually need the networks anymore. He doesn't need to kiss up to Rupert Murdoch. He can actually just go and hold a rally and get people really excited. He can just go on to YouTube or go on to Twitter or any other platform, Truth, his own platform, Truth Social, and get the word out. And that, my friends, that is key. So, okay, they're fighting. They've got this little family squabble. I mean, it's sort of strange, right? Because apparently the brothers, they haven't talked to each other in like a long time. I mean, I think the royals actually talk more than, Meghan Markle's husband, they're Harry, and, he talks to Kate's husband, Prince William, more than these guys talk to each other. So that's pretty bad. Like, what's going on, buddy? Like, you create this big company, but your kids are so messed up that they're so greedy and they're so fighting for power and they're so fighting for money that they can't even actually have any kind of relationship together? What kind of family is that? I mean, think about it, guys. Trump is breaking up this family, the Murdoch family. It's all over Trump. Remember we were talking about how people couldn't have Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner because somehow families were getting so mad and husbands and wives were breaking up over Trump and families were being torn apart. Well, what do you know? The Murdoch family is not immune. They too are getting broken up by Donald Trump. And I'm just saying, come on, get over it. Work it out. I realize it's a lot of money, but you know what? Money's not everything. It's some $15 billion, more than that, because that's in pounds. So you got to do the translation. That's in pounds. This is a British article I'm reading about succession there. This is in The Guardian, and they're talking about it being worth some 15 billion pounds. So they got a lot of money that's at stake here, and they've got to somehow figure it all out. Now, one person is quoted as saying that perhaps Lachlan and Rupert would buy out the other members of the family. Maybe then they'll talk to each other. What do you think? I don't know. It's kind of pathetic. I mean, the whole thing is pretty darn pathetic. Anyway, not our problem, right? Which is a good thing. But people perhaps at the company are a little worried because there's a lot of conservatives and there's a lot of liberals inside that building there on 6th Avenue. And so they're sort of trying to figure out which way the wind is blowing. And to that I say, good luck. I think the wind blows whatever way they figure out they can have the most power and the most money. I think the kids, maybe they don't care about money, but yet they're in court demanding their billions. So, they might care more than you think. Here's an interesting point that The Guardian makes, and it's wrong. So The Guardian is another print publication. The Guardian is trying to say that, it's such a big deal, this Fox thing. Like Fox is like the kingmaker, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think so, because look at Donald Trump, right? So that defutes that point. The other thing that they say is, Tucker Carlson was the big deal and now he's exiled. That's the quote they use. Now exiled from the station where he rose to power. So this guy, this author from The Guardian, doesn't even have the proper terminology because it's not called a station. Thank you very much, right? The station is what you have down the street. That's your local TV station. But you're talking about a network, a very, very different thing. So the network itself would be what he's exiled from, if you want to call it that. And they're trying to say, he's withered outside it and been largely unable to recreate the influence that he had while broadcasting to Fox viewers. Well, Guardian publication, I suspect that was a little self-serving. Perhaps you're saying that because you're trying to think that your newspaper still matters. And it doesn't, okay? Like, I just gave you some airtime. That was generous of me. You rarely get any airtime. As for Tucker, well, you see, Fox News did a debate, did it not? When it was trying to help those candidates, those Republican candidates actually get to the finish line and beat Donald Trump. So it had that Republican debate that Trump didn't participate in. But Trump decided to go over to new media and sit down with Tucker Carlson. And lo and behold, guess who won that one? 3 guesses, all right? And we're talking by a lot. I mean, he got like some 70 million viewers versus Fox News getting some, I'm going to be generous and call it 20 million viewers. And by the next day, Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump had gotten some 150 million views on Twitter. It was incredible. Of course, it was also rather striking, the conversation that Tucker had with Donald Trump about the attempt that might be taken on Trump's life. Now, remember, this was a while back. We've now had 2 attempts. Here we go.
Are you worried that they're going to try and kill you? Why wouldn't they try and kill you, honestly?
They're savage animals. They are people that are sick, really sick.
So, unfortunately, there have been some really sick people that have tried to do some really, really heinous, horrible things. So, Fox News is going to be in court. We can watch the succession drama play out. But I don't think any of us really care. Because the truth is, we've all migrated someplace else. I literally, myself, pulled the cord. We had like 6 cable boxes and I just pulled it on everything. We don't need it. What we need is content, real content, authentic content. We need truth. And that's what you're going to get right here. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, make sure you tell everyone. I want to get to these polls. Amazing new numbers. Brand new polls out today, and nobody's talking about it, not even over on the publication that actually printed the polls and did all the research and came up with them. That would be the New York Times. So New York Times Siena came out with some new polls today. And I'll tell you, it's amazing. Like if it had been reversed and Kamala was killing it, I'm telling you, I would have seen this poll everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely everywhere. But in today's case, nope, nowhere. Couldn't find it. Had to go looking for it. So let me share with you the results. Here we are with the New York Times Siena poll. Take a peek at that. It turns out Kamala may not have done as well as she thought she was doing in some critical Sun Belt states. We're talking Arizona, we're talking Georgia, we're talking North Carolina. Donald Trump up 5 Harris had been doing well. She had been up 5 herself. But take a peek, Donald Trump now up 5. Incredible. Polling average overall showing Donald Trump up 2. But among likely voters in Arizona, up 5. Going over to Georgia for a moment. Donald Trump maintaining his lead, very solid lead in the state of Georgia. Georgia and Arizona were 2 states that he lost by pretty thin margins last time around to Joe Biden. So the question is, does he reverse that this time? And judging by these polls, it's looking like he will. And then you go over to North Carolina, and he's up 3 there in North Carolina. So it's a little bit of a dead even heat, nonetheless, still in North Carolina, and some of these numbers are still within the margin of error. So North Carolina is still a little bit dicier, and then you get that situation with the governor, and then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, does it really matter? Because are people voting for the governor, or are they voting for Trump? One of the interesting things about Trump is he tends to generate a lot of appeal just for him, or a lot of dislike, right? It's like high beta stock, high beta politician. You love him or you hate him. But how much does it matter who else is on the ticket, the down ticket, right? Does it? I actually don't think it does. Normally it would, but this is a very unique and specific situation because you're talking about a very unique and specific personality in Donald Trump. So North Carolina, whether the Robinson thing hits him, I suspect it actually won't be as big an impact as some are suggesting. But this is just incredible to see. So again, these are killer important states. You need these states. He also could use Pennsylvania or Michigan or one of those alongside it. Let's take a look over here. If you look at Trump versus Harris, inside advantage out of Michigan had Donald Trump ahead. And this is a recent poll from a couple of weeks ago. All of the polls up until one that just came out today, and it's, I wouldn't necessarily say a high quality poll. All of the polls out of Pennsylvania have shown his lead in Pennsylvania because, you know what? I think a lot of people just kind of relate to him better and trust him on things like the economy. In fact, that was one of the number one things that they found in the New York Times Siena poll is that voters do trust him, certainly in these Sunbelt places, more so on the economy. And it makes all the sense in the world, given where we are economically speaking, given this striking amount of inflation that has happened under Kamala and Biden's watch. Anyway, the other big sort of headline coming out of this is that, amazingly, even CNN was forced to admit that Hispanics are not actually voting 1,000% for Kamala Harris. They're actually kind of looking around and saying, hey, maybe this Donald Trump guy is actually going to be the answer. So that was one of the highlights in the Arizona poll coming out of the New York Times. And I want to share with you what CNN even admitted. And then it was funny because this Acosta guy was like, well, if you trust the New York Times poll. So I guess he has his doubts, but nonetheless, let's watch him.
One of the things that we should note, and I don't know if we can show this number, I want to put this up on screen. Latino voters have moved away from Harris in Arizona. If you believe this New York Times poll, her lead has shrunk by 11 points in that voting block. She was at 60% in August, now 49% now.
So there you go. All right. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Kamala Harris. And I think it's worse than you think. I mean, I go over to the Teamsters poll, for example, and if you want to get a read on the Midwest, I think this is actually an important one to look at. Harris is at 34% versus Trump at nearly 60%. That's a big deal, ladies and gentlemen, and I think speaks volumes about where you're going to see places like Michigan and Pennsylvania shake out. Nate Silver will have to get his latest and greatest numbers, but as of September 19th, he still has Donald Trump winning the Electoral College 51% to Harris's 48.8%. So that is a pretty striking thing. And I suspect as a result of this New York Times Siena poll, you're going to see Trump's number go up. So it's no wonder Kamala is so desperate. Kamala Harris saying today she wants another debate. She somehow thinks that if she gets on stage with Donald Trump, then she's going to soar again in the polls somehow. But I'm just going to caution that if you look at these numbers, again, brand new from New York Times Siena, she's not exactly soaring after the debate. In fact, if anything, she's losing out there on her post-debate margin. So Kamala Harris is definitely struggling. And yet, nonetheless, she goes on TV and says, oh, you know, we need to debate the issues. We need to debate. Yeah, like you could ever debate the issues. Here, take a look.
Join me on the debate stage. Let's have another debate. There's more to talk about, and the voters of America deserve to hear the conversations that I think we should be having on substance, on issues, on policies. What's your plan? What's my plan? And we should have another one before Election Day.
Except she never talked about her plan. She doesn't actually talk about the policy. She hasn't even given any kind of speech on the economy that's supposed to be happening at some point this week. She only put her policies on the website in copy and paste fashion. Yep. The internet sleuths actually figured that one out because you could actually see the code, and it was the exact same code. It had been copied and pasted from Biden's website onto hers. So Kamala Harris has no policy. She's just an attack dog that goes for the jugular as fast as she possibly can. We saw it, for goodness sakes, in 2020 with Joe Biden. Why the heck he ever hired her as his VP? You got me. Obama must have really put in a good word, because Biden didn't like her. Dr. Jill Biden did not like her, and the Democrat Party didn't like her. I mean, look at how she polled after that one. Clearly, Hispanics in Arizona didn't like her after the debate, nor did anybody like her in Georgia. They really don't like her that much in North Carolina either. They certainly don't like her in Pennsylvania that much. I mean, this woman, it should be a layup. She's got all the media all over Trump in a really negative way, and just boosting her nonstop over and over again in a positive way. 100% of the ABC News coverage of Kamala Harris since she announced her run for the presidency has been positive. 93% of the coverage on ABC News about Trump has been negative. This was reported by the Media Research Center, which analyzed all of the television minutes that ABC News had devoted to these guys. So it is very obvious, it is very clear, the media has its bias. So you'd think the woman would be killing it. You'd think she would be trouncing Donald Trump, and yet she's not. She says she wants another debate. Another debate might. Okay? No more debates. No more debates. You don't know how to debate Kamala Harris. You are just going to level a whole bunch of nasty attacks at the President of the United States, former president, in a desperate attempt to try and goad him into saying something he probably shouldn't say. So granted, I'm not making excuses for him. He can't lose his temper. He shouldn't lose his temper. But I'll tell you, here's an easy way to solve it. Don't put yourself in that situation to begin with. Do not go near Kamala Harris. Okay? Stay far, far, far away. Even if she offers to do the thing on Fox. Okay? Can we all agree? Thumbs up on that, right, guys? Yeah, I see it. You do agree. You agree. I mean, we're on the same page. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's spokesperson was grilled by CNN saying, why isn't she actually talking more? Why isn't she doing more interviews? Why doesn't she actually do anything but read a teleprompter? Well, the spokesperson had something to say about that. And if you ask me, this is a total put down to every single American. Kamala Harris is too busy for you. She's too busy for us. Watch.
Vice President Harris at the rally today in Georgia. She's going to be in Wisconsin tonight. Yet she's not sitting down for regular interviews or fielding questions from the press. Certainly not to the degree that her counterpart Donald Trump is. Why? Why is she not doing more interviews to talk about her policies and answer some of the questions that voters have about her policies and on her change on her views in some of them?
Well, Jack, she's done interviews, and I know that we would love, or you would love, to see her sit down every single day with CNN and do interviews, but it's that she's a very busy person. She's the vice president as well as a candidate, and we heard her today talk about her views on these policies. It may not be in the format that the media would like. It may not be that she's sitting down doing a one-on-one.
My gosh. Okay, so all they want is for her to read directly from the teleprompter. She can't be challenged. You're not allowed to ask her any questions. She can't do she can't even do a one-on-one interview with Dana Bash from CNN. She had to bring Timmy in for, emotional support or whatever. The first woman running for the presidency of the United States can't do an interview with a reporter alone. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is so absolutely pathetic. She has no policy chops. She has no policy other than a bunch of socialist quasi-communist things like $25,000 for every single homeowner if you've never owned a home before, because, what better way to combat housing inflation than to give everybody free money? Therefore, of course, driving up housing prices by at the very least $25,000 each. I mean, you have only to look at healthcare, you have only to look at student loans to see how that all works, right? Tuition costs at colleges. I'll tell you, that's a whole other thing. People are pushing back on colleges. You got to be kidding me. Nearly $100,000 all in a year so you can go, get a degree in gender studies or God knows what. I'm sorry, at some point, Americans are going to say enough. I mean, you're starting to see it. People are rejecting Ivies. They're not applying to Harvard the way they used to. Why would you want your kid going to a place where they're doing all they're doing there on campus? And clearly they don't value anything other than the DEI nonsense that Kamala's all about. I'm telling you, America needs to reject this woman and reject her massively, spectacularly, in a huge way so that there's no debate about anything. I will say this, when Donald Trump polls, he polls poorly. So remember that. If he's just barely getting by and just a few points ahead here, there, and everywhere, he was way down in 2016. There was no evidence he was really going to win anything. It was just a hope and a prayer. I mean, yours truly was saying, don't count him out, don't count him out, don't count him out. Because anecdotally, I travel, I go around the country, I hear from people. And you guys will come up to me in an airport or some, random place and say, hey, I like Trump, or hey, I like your show, which probably means you like Trump's policies, right? If you're watching my show. And I knew that in 2016. I still heard that, but less of it in 2020, and I'm hearing it again now. So just an anecdote, not real data, but that stuff matters. So people are afraid to say this. So therefore, he's not polling necessarily the way that you would think. And thus, I suspect these polls are even better. They're going to try and get you down by saying, he stinks, and when he does actually do well in a poll, the New York Times Siena team is looking at themselves saying, what do we do? What do we do? How did that happen? I mean, heck, she did the Oprah thing. Didn't Oprah help? Well, Oprah and Kamala got, 300,000 viewers? We talked about that. And then the next day, a whopping 1.4 million viewers. Nobody was watching. The media went on and on about how wonderful and wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And they played sound bites. Oh, it wasn't wonderful. It's Oprah and Meryl Streep and Kamala Harris. No one cares. All right? Because they still need to put food on the table. They still need to take care of their families. They still need to pay the electric bill. And none of this has been good under Kamala Harris. That is for sure. Absolutely for sure. So you've got groups, shall we say, within the various members of the media that are so entrenched. And I sometimes ask myself, why? They're convinced that somehow it's the end of the world if Donald Trump wins again. I mean, look, we had him for 4 years. Did the world end? No. Actually, if you look at the actual statistics, what you see is that not only did the world not end, and we had a really, scary situation in there, did we not, with March 2020? Not only did it not end, we actually saw the best economic growth, really on record, for the middle class here in America. We've seen since you got to go all the way back to the 1950s, certainly when you look at median income growth, adjusted for inflation, it was way up, the highest it had been. Again, going back to the 1950s. So why would anybody trust the same team that has ruined the economy with their Inflation Reduction Act, in which they spent trillions of dollars we don't have? Why would you trust that team again? You wouldn't. And I don't think America will. which really irritates some members of the establishment elite, including AOC. AOC coming up with a few ideas on how she's going to deal with the media, because, it's just not right that the media is not fully in sync with her. And, you have members of the, how do we describe ourselves now? Fringe? My fringe, I was always establishment media, have won a whole lot of awards and worked at many networks and all that jazz. But I guess now I'm the fringe. Well, I'm happy. I'm happy to be over here and be the fringe. Reminder, make sure you subscribe to the fringe right here on the Trish Regan Show. It matters. It's important. Really, really important. But anyway, let's go to AOC and see what she wants to do, I guess, with people like me. Because, you got to get us under control.
I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy, because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're looking into.
Ooh, great. I'm going to look into my First Amendment rights again, shall we? It's bonkers. And by the way, we went through this already. We've seen this movie before, right, in March 2020. And then you saw it with the Hunter Biden laptop. We saw it, heck, with the so-called dirty dossier, which turned out to be opposition research bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton camp. What do you know? But, if you listen to the CIA types and all those ex-spooks, they'd tell you that Donald Trump was doing some things he shouldn't over in Russia and was therefore somehow compromised. Only it turns out none of that was true. None of it was true. But you know what was true? Hunter Biden was compromised. And thus, one has to wonder how much Joe Biden has been compromised by none other than that laptop. But, that was misinformation, disinformation. I guess you could go to jail for that or something, or lose your Twitter account at the very least, as many of my friends did. Heck, I was in Facebook jail for a whole year because I had sent out one of those Hunter Biden stories. Oh my goodness. So make sure you follow me here. I'll tell you, Hillary wants anyone who's not in line, in step with her, heading straight to the slammer. Take a peek.
There are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence, because
who are these people? Gavin Newsom's one of their club too. Governor of California now making it illegal to create or send out a meme that's a political meme that actually uses AI. Artificial intelligence. So, if you're doing something kind of funny and you think it's comedic or whatever, and you send this out or you retweet it, but Gavin's coming for you. California's coming for you. This is bonkers. Again, I get back to what about the First Amendment? Janet Jackson might be asking, what about her First Amendment? She's getting canceled overnight because Janet dared to say something that she probably shouldn't have said. Not if she wanted to keep polite company with all those, entertainment types. Anyway, good for her. She actually spoke her mind. They're calling it misinformation, and they are canceling her as fast as they can, Janet Jackson. However, doubling down on her position. And her position, well, I'll quote from the article itself. This came from, I believe, The Guardian. So her comment on record was, well, you know what they supposedly said? She said to the reporter, quote, she's not black. That's what I heard. That she's Indian, end quote. The reporter writes, she looked at me expectantly, perhaps assuming that I have Indian heritage. Well, the reporter says, she's both. Her father's white Janet came back with. That's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. She coughs. I was told that they discovered her father was white. And then the reporter writes, I'm floored at this point. It's well known that Harris's father is a Jamaican economist, a Stanford professor who split with her Indian mother when she was 5. Quote, my mother understood very well that she was raising 2 black daughters, Harris wrote in her book, The Truths We Hold. Okay, so we're not going to debate this. I mean, it's kind of silly that we're even having this chatter. You know what? Who cares? All right, I'm just going to leave it at that. But you're going to cancel Janet over this? I mean, I guess that, you know, and I'm not going to split hairs on this. Yes, the father, my biggest issue with the father is that he is a, can I say this? Communist. Okay, that's my issue with the father. There's a redistribution of wealth that Mr. Kamala Harris' dad wants to actually implement. And that would be my biggest concern about Kamala Harris. But, you know, if you're a black American like Janet Jackson and you're from Detroit and, you know, you kind of, you have sort of a different, perhaps, view of what a black American is. And I think that there's a lot of room here for all of black America. But the truth is a lot of people in the African-American community feel like, okay, you know what, if I'm going to wear that as my badge, then, you know what, I need to have gone through some of the challenging and tough times that have historically challenged this community, which means, you know what, if you grow up in the inner city in Harlem or inner city, you know, on the south side of Chicago, you're going to have more street cred. And so perhaps this is sort of what she's getting at, that Kamala doesn't quite have the street cred that, say, even she, where she came from, and obviously she's lived a very wonderful life in terms of her ability to be an entertainer and reap success from that. However, she's sort of saying, this lady isn't quite my kind. Well, she's in big trouble. Okay, so I think that the Rolling Stone just went like totally nuts. Let me see if I can show you this, guys, because it's sort of unfair. I mean, it's, again, I think, speaking to this total culture of you can't say certain things. If you dare to say something, then we are going to cancel you. And it's sort of unfortunate, right? Because we shouldn't live in a society that's that wacky about stuff. I think I do have it here. So, okay, so this is an article in Rolling Stone where they're like, how dare she? I should tell you, the headline from today is that TMZ, TMZ is reporting that she's doubling down. She's not going anywhere. She's, you know, saying that this is in fact the case. So here's Janet Jackson, according to the Rolling Stone, how dare she, questioning whether Kamala Harris is black and thinks that the election may bring mayhem. In this interview with The Guardian, the pop star appears to parrot, they say, misinformation. Is it misinformation? Or is it kind of how maybe you characterize things, right? If you're a black American like Janet Jackson, you kind of see a certain set of, you know, sort of core upbringing, et cetera. I mean, again, I don't want to like waste time on it because it's not really fair any which way you look at it. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm Irish, right? And I'm Scottish and I'm Lithuanian. And you know what? Maybe you know about the Irish and Scottish part more than the Lithuanian, but I'm still Lithuanian. So I can claim all of those. And you know what? I don't care. Look, Kamala can even claim Irish if she wants, because apparently that's the rumor on the internet. I don't care. You can be whatever you want. I want to get off this topic. And I just think it's really unfortunate that they're doing that to a great, great star like Janet Jackson. Meanwhile, Kamala's getting a kiss of death support from a union that actually no one really likes. So we're going to talk about that. But first, did you guys go over to 76 Research yet? Have you done that? Have you done that? Have you done that? Let me show you where you need to go. This is the financial media company that I created with a dear friend, Rob Horton, who's super smart and has been a stock picker for his entire career. As you know, I have covered financial markets for my entire career. I started in finance. And I'm super excited about this because we have a lot of ideas there for you. You need to be invested in the stock market. You just need to be. I'm going to save my lecture for another day. But if you want to keep up with inflation and then some, right? If you want to actually have some real growth, then you need to be investing. But it's tricky right now. It's tricky in light of what the Fed just did. There's a lot of expectation that we could even be heading into a recession. So what do you do? How do you pick stocks? That's where we come in. We are here to help you. We have 3 model portfolios. We don't invest for you. You do all the investing, but we're giving you the research. So you just pay a flat fee for the research. You get 10 to 15 names. We really have meticulously gone through these companies, and we believe in them. We don't believe in turning you in and out of stocks all the time. You really want to buy long term, right? You want to get in on these companies that have long-term growth. So we get 3 different portfolios there. You can also get the 76 report. You can subscribe for just $1 a month for the first 2 months, and it goes to $9.95. Go to 76research.com or 76report. Go to 76report.com today. Use code word dollar, DOLLAR. My gift to you. Code word dollar, just $1. You can cancel anytime. So no harm in all of this. Meanwhile, this is hysterical. So Kamala Harris, she just got like a new sponsor, shall we say, and it's the IRS. I kid you not. Take a look at this. This article coming to us from none other than our friends over at Media Research Center, and they are reporting that the IRS's union, the IRS, because they got a union there at the IRS. I didn't even know that. Of course. So they get the union at the IRS, and the union at the IRS has chosen their candidate to be Kamala Harris, guys. Kamala Harris. So here we are. IRS agents at the IRS, the union there, announcing today, or actually this was the other day, that they're endorsing Democrat Kamala Harris for president in this year's election. Vice President Harris has played a role in one of the most pro-labor administrations in history, the National Treasury Employees Union and TEU explained in a press release announcing its decision. The administration also delivered agency budgets that provide federal employees with additional staffing and resources, including significant new investments to rebuild the IRS. Yeah, they want all those agents. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, that didn't, need I remind you, reduce any inflation, but rather increased it rather significantly. Indeed, the Inflation Reduction Act, they write, for which Harris cast the deciding vote to break a Senate deadlock. I wouldn't be boasting about that. I just wouldn't. I'd try and keep that kind of low key. Boost the IRS budget by $80 billion, enabling the agency to hire an additional 87,000 employees while increasing the union's membership in the process. Woohoo! Well, now she's definitely going to win. This is it, right? Now she's got to win the whole shebang. She's got the IRS on her side. Listen, if I were Trump, I'd be publicizing that one all day long. You want to know who the IRS is friends with? Kamala Harris. Yeah. Okay, so that's, she couldn't get the Teamsters, right? She couldn't get the Teamsters, but she did get the IRS. She's got that going for her. Now, the Teamsters, 60% of them want Trump. No Teamsters, but you got the IRS. Well, girl, I just don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Go back to the polls, you guys. Go back to the polls. Believe me when I say she will not play in Peoria. Maybe literally in Illinois. She'll win Illinois, okay? Chicago. They got a whole different system of politics in Chicago. But will she win in Pennsylvania? I don't think so. No, not when you're proud of your IRS endorsement, but you can't get the Teamsters. That speaks volumes about what's going on at this moment in time. She wants to raise taxes. You see, the IRS loves her. She loves the IRS back. She wants to raise taxes on everyone. And wow, you know what? America's not going to like her, not liking her at all for that. I sat down just the other day with Akash Chagule. He's over at Americans for Prosperity, and he specializes in things like tax policy. So, I'm asking him, what the heck is going on? We get this fiscal cliff thing coming up and a whole bunch of other problems. Listen to what he had to say. Oh, yeah. Taxes could be going way up, and away come next year. Yikes. I'm here to discuss all of it. Akash, good to see you. Akash Chagule, he's Vice President of Americans for Prosperity. It is great to see you, my friend.
Great to be back with you, Trish. Thank you.
So what is the fiscal cliff. I mean, I realize it's a few things, but it kind of, it hangs out there and people are like, it's like budget stuff. I really don't like hearing about it, but you need to hear about it because it actually affects your pocketbook. Break it down. What are we talking about when we talk about the fiscal cliff?
Is a bunch of tax and spending issues all happening next year. Normally these issues kind of come up once a year, every other year. We just so happen to be in a situation where next year you have the expiration of the individual side of the 2017 Trump tax cuts, which cut taxes for 80% of American families. You have the expiration of the debt limit, which, again, we all hate, but does need to be increased. The question is, can we cut spending along with that debt limit increase? You have the expiration of the expanded ACA subsidies. During the pandemic, the Democrats expanded the size of those ACA subsidies. Those are expiring and should expire. And then you've got the annual fight over government funding, government appropriations, which is always an opportunity to cut spending. If we have a full Republican trifecta next year, it's an opportunity that we can't miss. And so we have all of that coming to a head next year at a time that we're coming out of an inflation crisis, trying to avoid another big increase in people's cost of living if we get these issues wrong. And so we're hoping to get them right.
I mean, look, I'll just, you had me at taxes, right? So if taxes are going up, they're going up, by the way, and they try and say, it's not going up on the middle class. I want you to walk us through that because it is going to go up on the middle class as well. Not to mention you're taking money out of circulation. So you get the Fed over there doing all its printing, as we saw 50 basis points this week from the Fed, thereby helping equity stock market investors, and the middle class constantly gets squeezed. I mean, what does that mean if their taxes go up, Akash?
Yeah, if nothing is done and these taxes expire, it is a massive tax increase on the middle class. The median family in America saved about $2,000 thanks to the Trump tax cuts in 2017. If these tax cuts expire, if Congress doesn't renew them and build on them, their taxes are going to go up. That 2017 bill, it cut tax rates across the board. It shrank the number of brackets. Remember, it doubled the standard deduction, Trish, which is kind of that tax cut from the bottom, which just makes it a lot simpler. And also, it cut taxes. It also makes it a lot simpler for people to file taxes. It increased the child tax credit. And so there were a number of things there that decreased the cost of living for American families. If Congress doesn't get its act together and extend those tax cuts, that goes away. What we're saying is don't only extend them, make them permanent. Let's build on them.
Oh yeah, let's make them permanent and let's build on them. Like, why not give us some more? But in the meantime, you're going to have the top tax bracket in places like California really exceed, I would think, 50% between state and federal.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, you've already got those millionaires taxes and things like that in California, New York, Massachusetts, things like that. Kamala Harris has been very clear that she wants to raise taxes on corporations. She wants to raise it on, as you've discussed before, this quote unquote unrealized gains concept, which is kind of crazy on the financial sector. And again, the message here is very clear. She's talked about different tax carve-outs and tax credits for the middle class. Those are not tax cuts. Those are tax expenditures where you're kind of picking winners and losers based on political constituencies. The 2017 tax bill cut taxes across the board. That's what we want to make permanent, a tax code that's fair, flat, and neutral for everyone.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about Kamala's proposals, but before I do, I know that this is, front and center on your mind, of course, as it always is, but you have a big shindig going on in DC where you're getting everybody together and you're going to try and focus on these issues. This is the AFP Capital Conference. Tell me about what's happening.
Yeah, so as folks probably know, AFP is the largest conservative grassroots organization in the country. We have state chapters, state directors all over the country, 37 states. We're active in all 50 states. What we're doing is bringing those state directors, those state leaders to Washington next week to meet with their members of Congress and their staff. We have over 200 meetings, 120 some with members, and we're kind of bringing that Washington voice and also that grassroots voice. The people that watch your show, listen to your show, Trish, they don't have time to come to Washington to meet with their lawmakers, and frankly, they're better off staying out of the Beltway. Our state directors, our grassroots advocates, we do this work so they don't have to. That's what we're doing. We're flying.
I want to actually shout, and we thank you for that. It's commendable because we need that representation in Washington. We really do. And you are working on behalf of the grassroots level. AFPHQ, it stands for headquarters. So AFPHQ.org. If anyone watching this show wants to get involved, if you want to know more about it, I really encourage you because you know what? We all have a voice in this. And it's one thing to sit around and tweet and put messages on Facebook and all that, but you know what? It's a whole other thing to get involved, and you can get involved. This is the opportunity. They want your help. AFPHQ.org. So exciting stuff that you've got going on. Unfortunately, some scary stuff, right? As we, again, talk about this upcoming fiscal cliff. I want to go back to tax proposals and policies out of Kamala Harris. You know, she's talking about $25,000 for first-time home buyers. We got AOC talking today about some multi-billion, $50 billion that she wants to give out. She wants equitable housing for everyone. I mean, I can just see it. I can see it now, Akash, right? We're going to live in those cement buildings, USSR style. We're going to have our little commie homes there. Forgive me. I'm being a little bit facetious, but it's frightening sometimes what they think they can keep giving away and giving away and giving away. If you're trying to curb inflation, do you really think $25,000 for first-time home buyers is the answer? Or is that actually just going to send home prices up, especially for first-time home buyers, by $25K a piece?
Yeah, you nailed it, Trish, which is that we don't need to theorize about this. We've seen this experiment play out many, many times in many countries over the course of human history, and we see it every day in our own lives. So I'll just give you two examples, Trish. Higher education and healthcare.
Yes.
Those are two industries that see government as a never-ending source of revenue, and therefore they never need to improve their quality, and they can keep jacking up prices because the taxpayers are always there to foot the bill. If we start doing that to the price of homes, I mean, we are in big trouble. She wants to do it for homes. She wants to do it for childcare. She wants to do it, for all kinds of things. The great irony of which is, Trish, she cast the deciding vote in the Senate to raise costs in the first place with the American Rescue Plan Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, using air quotes. So the reason all these costs are so high to begin with is her fault. And now she wants to make matters worse with more spending, more subsidies, more government involvement. What we need is to get government out of the way, keep taxes low, fair, flat, neutral. That's what we're out here talking about.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, you're putting more power, hopefully, in the hands of the consumers themselves, as opposed to power in the hands of governments. But that's sort of where we fundamentally, I think, disagree, right? The left and right, and what you guys are representing at that grassroots level. Again, a shout out, AFPHQ.com. Go there today, org, and get involved. But in other words, what you're representing is more power to the people, effectively. Let us make the decisions. You know, you guys just need to get out of the way.
Yeah, and that's worked throughout the history of our country, right? Individual liberty, free markets, free enterprise. We have a lot of people questioning these values, a lot on the left, even some voices on the right. We really do need to get back to basics, Trish. We just saw 4 years of failed Bidenomics, big government, big spending, big regulation do harm not just to a certain class of Americans, the middle class, lower income folks, all Americans are bearing the brunt of this. And so I think now is as good a time as any, especially for conservatives that listen to your show, to get involved. Let's get back to basics and spread the message in Washington, in your communities, on doorsteps and phone calls all across this country, because we need it more than ever.
I believe it. I really believe people really need to take some ownership here. Let me just ask you, I'm curious, does it ever feel like herding cats, though? Like, so right now, you go to Washington, D.C., and you get all these lawmakers. I wonder, are they so distracted by the election that, they're just kind of punting? There's a tendency, shall we say, in Washington, right, to just, kick the can down the road, so to speak, and they're not going to worry about it until they have to worry about it. And so this is why I think what you're doing is super important, and why people should get involved, because you need to raise the flag like now. Say, hey, I don't want my taxes going up. And maybe part of that means not electing Kamala, but it's not just that. I mean, it's members of Congress, right? That, if she were to say, not get elected, but you have an entire, house full of Democrats, both on the Senate side and in the representative side, then you could be looking at some problems. If she gets elected and the Democrats had a clean sweep, then you've got more problems. Yeah. I just think that, it's not entirely, well, we talk about the Oval Office so much. It's also what's happening at the congressional and Senate level.
Yeah, and Trish, it's even Republicans that agree with us on the issues. The knowledge gap is just very big right now. You had a lot of members of Congress who weren't there in 2017. They never voted for those Trump tax cuts. Their staffs are new and they're young. The number one way they can get the message clearly is to hear it from their constituents. Call your congressman, tell them the tax cuts matter and you want them extended. and made permanent. That's a very simple message. You like the
even if you're a Democrat.
Want them to stay. Yeah.
Even if you know what? I come from New Hampshire. I was born and raised in the live free or die state of New Hampshire, where not even Democrats believe in raising taxes. There's no income tax in New Hampshire, and they got rid of the dividend tax too.
We'd be a lot better if the whole country was like New Hampshire. We've talked about that before, but we're a ways off from that.
Akash, it is so good to see you, my friend. I do. And everybody who's watching, do me this favor right now. Go to afphq.org. Get involved. Put some pressure on these guys. You don't want your taxes going up. Akash, I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Trish.
Yeah, you know what? And they're going up. They're going up. Let me get rid of our graphics here. They're going up for sure if Kamala Harris has anything to do about it. I mean, well, she's already said that, right? Like, I don't need to tell you that. What she's not being very clear about is how they're going to affect the middle class. And they will, believe me. You know what? Once they get started. Heck, Janet Yellen is out with this big piece in the Wall Street Journal. You see, Kamala's been trying to cozy up to the business community, so maybe there's a method to the madness. We'll put Janet Yellen out there. Treasury Secretary put an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal in which she says, quote, permanent tax cuts that are stacked towards the wealthy and are unpaid for would explode the federal deficit. Repealing investments in industry of the future would stunt growth. You see, you know, that's that green energy thing again. Remember, they spent all that money on green energy only to find out that, what do you know? All those car companies like, Toyota, right, and Ford are now backing off all their EV vehicles. Remember, they were supposed to have that mandate and we're all going to just be totally EV by a certain year. Yeah, that didn't work out because you see, there's this little thing called the invisible hand. Remember Adam Smith's lesson in Econ 101? Janet, I'm sure you took this class. You're a smart lady. You're a trained economist. It's really unfortunate to see her acting like such a political hack. If I had to hear her tell me one more time that inflation was transitory, I really was about to throw up every time I heard that. And you know what? They were all wrong. And I, who, you know, has a fair amount of experience, but I wasn't head of the Federal Reserve, thank you very much, nor have I been Treasury Secretary, thank you very much, maybe I should be. I told you in August 2020, we were going to have mass inflation, right? Right. Another reason to go over if you're interested in investing. And by the way, I shouldn't say if you're interested in investing because you should absolutely be interested in investing. It is critical that you get interested in investing, ladies and gentlemen, because this is the only way that you can really kind of help negate the challenging effects of a liberal administration, which we may get. Listen, you know what? It could happen. I don't believe it will happen, but it could certainly happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but it could certainly happen. So when you think about, okay, I'm going to go out to dinner this weekend. I was talking about my kid needing a new iPhone, wanting a new iPhone. I should clarify. He doesn't need a new iPhone. He wants a new iPhone. And we had a little chat about what it means when you spend that money. And I got, I can trade it in, Mom, and I get $650 back. And I'm like, right, but it's still going to cost another $500, $600. What is the value of that $500, $600 over time? What is the value of your, trip to Dunkin' Donuts? Thank you very much. That won't even apparently advertise on Rumble because, they have their issues with conservatives. Is it worth giving them $2 or $5 these days, given the increasing cost of inflation? The answer is no, because that $5 is really not $5. That $5, when you think about compound interest over time, and you can do this, guys, you can trade easily. They have no fee trading pretty much everywhere. You can put that money to work for you. And that's what I want you to do. So go to 76 Research, sign up, get the model portfolios, inflation protection, American resilience, the basic income builder portfolio. I mean, this one, let me show you the numbers because Rob crunched the numbers. This is for the last quarter. So this is just terrific. I think I have these numbers for you. I want to show you how so many of these stocks, our top holdings, these are the top 5 holdings that we have, and they've just been gaining and gaining and gaining with them upwards of 22% gains in some cases. So here we are. Take a look at that. Okay, 26% gain there. So that is our income builder portfolio there at 76 Research. Again, guys, stock 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up considerably. This again is for the quarter ending 8/29/24. S&P was up only 6%. Our portfolio, total stock median stock total return of 15% versus the S&P. So this is what I'm talking about, all right? I want to see everybody start to take some ownership. We talk about the importance of individuality and being responsible, right, for oneself and one's future. And this stuff matters. So 76research.com, that's where you need to go. This is my baby, right? This is what I've wanted to do forever. And I said to Rob, you know, there's information that people need. They need independent information. The problem with the financial services industry, and I'm just going to say this, is everybody's got skin in the game. So they're promoting certain products. They're promoting certain ETFs. They're promoting certain investments because somebody's getting paid. Sometimes you don't always see it, but there's some kind of fee built in here. And I thought, you know, what if we could just give real research? Well, real research costs tens of thousands of dollars. And this is what the hedge funds pay for. And they get great research, but it costs many, many thousands of dollars, but they only sell it to, you know, a few select people. And I said, Rob, what if we could do this in a very different way where we're actually not trying to sell it to just a few people, but we actually take this research and we scale it and we give it to everyone that we can possibly give it to. So there's no back end deal. I'm not getting any kind of cut of anything for telling you, hey, you know, this is a good stock to be in. This is just, you pay your fee. In the case of the 76 report, it's $9.95. If you add it on the income builder to that, I think it works out to some, you know, I mean, it's like $20 a month extra. And this is how you create wealth for the future. So it's really important, you know, before you give your money to the pizza place or Dunkin' Donuts or anything, like just find where you can, just put a little away. I have a little technique I use. It's not really precise, but in other words, if I'm going to buy something, I try to take the same amount of money and then go put it in the market. Because I'm like, you know what, at least, you know, all right, I'm doing that, I'm buying that for myself, but I also put the same amount of money into a market investment that hopefully pays off in the long run. So that's for you guys. I created it for you. Go to 76research.com. So obviously, one of the big stories, and we haven't really talked about it yet, has been Israel and, of course, those pagers. And they really, you know, I mean, Israel doesn't mess around, right? Like, that's all I'll say. Like, the Mossad, like, really doesn't mess around. Israeli intelligence is phenomenal. It's sort of amazing that October 7th actually happened because their intelligence team is so incredibly good at their jobs. Well, they're so good at their jobs that you'll note, of course, that all those pagers that Hamas terrorists were carrying blew up like right in their hands. And that was obviously a very, very big story. It was incredible. It turns out that Israel actually made and shipped these pagers to them. Now, today, we're getting news, of course, that Israel has launched strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon, nearly 500 dead there. So, it's tragic because this is war and people dying is never a good thing. But one of the things that sort of struck me today that's making some news is what Obama's former CIA chief had to say about this. So this is like a former Clinton guy, former Obama guy. His name is Leon Panetta, former Secretary of Defense, former head of the CIA. And I'm just going to say this. Our ally has always been Israel. Like, we helped create Israel. Our ally in the Middle East is Israel. It's not Hamas. It's not Iran. It's Israel. So why is the former head of the CIA saying this?
To be able to place an explosive in technology that is very prevalent these days and turn it into a war of terror, really, a war of terror. This is something new.
Is it terrorism?
I don't think there's any question that it's a form of terrorism.
What? So now Israel has just used terrorism against the actual terrorists? Like, we do define Hamas as an actual terrorist group. I don't know. Maybe Leon's like hanging out at Harvard too much. Leon, go hang with Claudine Gay. She's no longer president at Harvard, right? Because she was willing to defend the inexcusable stuff, which I guess apparently you're in sync with. I don't know what to make of that comment. What do you guys think? I mean, this is the former head of the CIA, the former Secretary of Defense, and has he just changed sides? The whole world wants to know what that was about. And here's the danger, ladies and gentlemen. If Kamala Harris becomes the president of the United States, what does that mean for our relationship with a longtime ally like Israel? What does it mean for all of our relationships with allies? Is she going to turn all that upside down? Because, you know, Rashida and the guy that's out, the fire alarm guy, Bowman, they tell her to. The squad is noisy enough that she's got to then switch her allegiance. I mean, this is bonkers. I did not expect that from Leon. We haven't done a ton on this story. It's just so horrible, horrific. It's really a downer, right? But I had to show you that because I find that really, really disturbing. I mean, you know, you're watching which way the wind blows, and it's not blowing in Israel's direction when the former head of the CIA is saying stuff like that. Okay. In the meantime, Kamala Harris wants you to think that she's actually sort of pro-Israel, and she's like, you know, a gun-touting member of the GOP, the way she sounds here. You saw this thing on Oprah?
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that. But my staff will deal with that later.
Yeah. But you
need to be able to place an explosive in.
Wow. Right? That was one of the highlights from the little sit down with Oprah the other day. And that was very contrived, very scripted. I guarantee you it was scripted. I mean, these are scripted people, right? She's out there doing rallies. She's out there doing these interviews like Oprah, which are scripted. Okay, there's no impromptu there. So she made a decision to say that because she's trying to deliberately appeal to independents, many of whom may be gun owners, right? You have, again, I'll go back to Live Free or Die New Hampshire. It's on the coffee cup. You can help support the show. TrishRegan.shop and get your Live Free or Die mug. Sort of gratuitous shout out there. But, you know, you think about New Hampshire, and I'll tell you guys, you know, there's a lot of people there that are independents that are also gun owners. So that's an interesting sort of take for her to have taken. Anyway, just a quick reminder, make sure you subscribe. Don, good to see you. Peace of Mind. Yes, lots of tough love here. I do my tough love. Peace of Mind is actually over on our 76 channel as well. So I so appreciate that. We love having you there. It's a small little channel. Guys, go over there and subscribe if you would to the 76 channel. I'll be back here live with you again tomorrow. Until then, have a terrific night. Good to see you again, Ian, and everybody else. Peace of Mind asking where he can get one of these fancy cups. You know what? Before I go, I'm actually going to add it. I'm going to talk and type at the same time. TrishRegan.shop is the address, and you can get them there. https:///TrishRegan.shop. Get yourself a coffee mug. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.